Like all other aspects of marketing strategy, both pricing and marketing channels management techniques are evolving due to changes in technology and ongoing globalization. Marketing and business strategies need to continually evaluate marketplace shifts and changes in customer expectations when approaching pricing and distribution and supply chain issues and strategies. These two very important elements of marketing mix. This lecture will review the role of pricing and its relationship with quality and value, as well as discussing pricing constraints, strategies, and techniques. The second part will address the issues and challenges most distribution and supply chain face nowadays. The concept and functions of marketing channel will be explored and discussed. What is price? Price is the amount of money charged for a product or service. It is the sum of all the value that consumers give up in order to gain the benefits of having or using a product or service. There is no other component of the marketing program that firms become more infatuated with than pricing. There are some reasons for the intention. There are only two ways for a firm to grow revenue: increase prices or increase the volume of products sold. Pricing is the easiest of all marketing variables to change. Firms make considerable effort to discover and anticipate the pricing strategies and tactics of other firms. Price is considered to be the only means of differentiation in mature markets plagued by commoditization. Price plays several roles in an organization business strategy. First of all, it fundamentally assists in maintaining healthy financial performance. Price is also a strategic marketing variable supporting competitive positioning efforts. Accordingly, pricing objectives are multidimensional. Pricing objectives may be financial performance oriented. Examples of such objectives are to achieve profitability, cash flow, sales, market share growth, and survival. They may be buyer-oriented to stimulate demand or trial or sales in a downturn. Objectives may be set in order to achieve a specific image through positioning. Another pricing objective used by many nonprofits as well as for-profit organizations is related to social responsibility agenda, where pricing is set by taking into account consumers' ability to pay for the essential products and services. Very often, objectives may center on influencing the competition by discouraging market entry, encouraging others to raise prices, or simply responding to competitive shifts. For consumers, price is about what they will give up in exchange for a product. What risks will they take? Price will also signal the value of good or service. What buyers will give up in exchange for a product depends on their perceived value of the product. In other words, this perception determines the buyer's willingness to spend money and effort in exchange for anticipated benefits of a certain product or service. Perceived value varies according to taste. It may also vary based on knowledge of a product and the availability of substitutes. Another factor impacting the perception of value is relative importance of performance differentials to the user. For example, an experienced computer user values certain operating system type and characteristics more than a novice user. Intensity of use will also impact value perceptions. For example, convenience features on a cell phone are more highly valued by people using them regularly versus people using them occasionally. The ability to pay impacts perceived value as well. For example, a choice of a hotel made by a retired executive will be different from a choice made by a travel fan of lesser economic means. When setting prices, it is critical to first consider the overall marketing strategy for the product or service. In addition, a marketeer should consider the constraints on pricing strategies. Some of the key types of constraints include buyer demand, stage in the product life cycle, the cost of production and distribution, and competition. Let's first discuss the demand factor and explore the concept of price elasticity. Price elasticity refers to customers' responsiveness or sensitivity to changes in price. A more concise definition defines elasticity as the relative impact on the demand for the product given specific increases or decreases in price charged for the product. When setting a price, a critical question is, how elastic or inelastic is the demand for the class, product, and brand? In other words, how sensitive are your customers to changes in price? There are several factors that will impact the price sensitivity. For example, perceived scarcity often impacts perception of relative value and thus price sensitivity. Another factor is the cost of a good or service. Studies have also shown that price sensitivity depends on the value of the purchase. In low-cost product categories, a few percent price difference does not have dramatic effect. For example, when choosing among hammers in the $5 price range, a 10% difference will not be a major factor, and 50 cents can be sacrificed over some attractive product features. The picture is different when the same 10% difference is applied to products priced hundreds or thousands of dollars. Substitute and complementary factors may also impact price sensitivities. Potential price of substitution will be considered by buyers. A marketeer should consider how easily a customer may switch to another product, since this will impact his or her price sensitivity. Difficulty in switching may be based on psychological reasons, perception of risk associated with other brands, or functional reasons, loyalty programs or investment in training. Complementary factors are also likely impact pricing. For example, gaming consoles choice is often based on the ability of attractive games. In addition, perception of quality will impact price sensitivity. The perceived price-quality relationship is heightened in situations where product quality is difficult to judge by inspection before purchase. Selling consultant services is an example. In these situations, price can be used as a cue for market quality. An example of the unique nature of musical instruments is the fact that Gibson sold more guitars when the price was raised. This product exhibited an upward sloping demand curve. Current trends impacting the nature of buying demand include the rise of the internet facilitating the speedy transfer of price information. All informational sources greatly impact the nature of demand and price sensitivities nowadays. Stage in the product life cycle is another factor influencing pricing decisions. Often, the newness of the product in the marketplace will constrain pricing strategies. For example, in the introductory phase, companies commonly choose either skimming or penetration pricing strategy. Skimming, or charging the highest price possible, is effective when the company has a monopoly, the target audience is not price sensitive, or competition is not a significant factor. Price penetration strategies, assuming setting the lowest market price, are most common when a company is faced with ample competition and the target audience is price sensitive. The competitive environment will have a greater impact on pricing strategies in situations where either there is no significant difference between the alternatives, a customer is knowledgeable about the category, or the information is cheap to obtain. In these scenarios, it is easy to compare prices and products and easy to switch products. Accordingly, a marketing strategist needs to carefully identify the nature of competition in the industry. When considering the impact of costs on pricing, a marketeer should first analyze the cost structure of the company. It is important to evaluate both direct and indirect costs. Total costs usually include fixed and variable costs, as well as direct and indirect costs. Indirect costs may be a function of time or available opportunities. It is also critical to understand the cost and volume relationships, economies of scale, and other impact on pricing. For example, at what point will costs decrease per unit? Then, cost-based and experience-based competitive advantages should be analyzed. Finally, a marketeer should determine how much control one has over costs. Although pricing for individual products are made on case-by-case basis, most firms have to develop a general and consistent approach for establishing prices on their products. The relationship between pricing and other elements of marketing mix also play a very important role. In addition to the key issues influencing pricing strategy we have already discussed, a firm's costs should be carefully considered because these costs set the floor for the price the firm can charge. Hence, one of the simplest approach to pricing is the cost plus pricing, where a standard markup is simply added to the cost of product. Another cost-oriented approach is the break-even pricing, or variation called target profit pricing. The firm tries to determine the price at which it will break even or make the target profit it is seeking. The break-even chart shows the sales volume where the price covers the cost. The advantages associated with this approach stem from its simplicity, and this model can be adapted to include profit objectives. Target profit pricing determines the price that yields its target rate of return on investment. For example, public utilities use this strategy. GM has used this method for pricing its automobiles to achieve a 15 to 20% return on investment. However, some disadvantages associated with cost and profit-oriented pricing strategy include the difficulty in categorizing of some costs. This approach also assumes that variable costs do not change. Most importantly, pricing models built on cost foundation often ignore the buyer's demand. Pricing strategies focus on matching or beating competitors' prices are widely spread. Competitive matching is employed in many industries, particularly oligopolies. Although some firms may change slightly more or less, these firms set prices at what most consider being the going rate for the industry. For highly competitive automobile industry, for example, price matching becomes a means of survival. Predatory pricing is setting the price at low levels to hurt competitors. For example, Microsoft's Internet Explorer was bundled with software packages for free to gain market share from Netscape Navigator. The advantage of setting prices based on competitive environment is that this approach is reality-based. The disadvantage is that often such pricing leads to price wars. Although drawbacks is the assumption that the competitor's objectives are similar to the firm's own objectives. Using this pricing approach blindly may result in reduced demand or dilute the organization's brand equity. More importantly, such an approach does not take into account the customer. Pricing strategies consider customers' perception require that the marketeer has strong insight into the factors influencing the customer. There are multiple strategies and techniques based on understanding of pricing perception. Psychological pricing considers the psychology of prices and not simply the economics. The price is used to say something about the product, suggest value or quality. Prestige pricing, setting the prices at the top end of all competing products in a category to promote an image of exclusivity and superior quality. Consulting and research services are often sold in this category as well. Value-based pricing is setting reasonably low prices, but still offering high-quality products and adequate customer services. The practice is commonly called EDLP, everyday low pricing, in retail markets. Value-based pricing naturally draws customers because they have confidence in the value of the products they buy. Adjusting prices is often needed in both consumer and business markets. In consumer markets, adjustments are made to create excitement and initial demand. Let's review the most popular techniques. Promotional discounting assumes using sales or other special promotion to attract customers and create excitement. Reference pricing is comparing the actual selling price to an internal or external reference price. All consumers use internal reference prices or internal expectation for what a product should cost. External reference pricing are typically provided by the manufacturer or retailer. This method is based on the assumption that reference prices should originate from consumer perceptions. This approach includes understanding of the price perception by a buyer, role of substitutes, etc. In addition, it is critical for marketeers to assess the perceived value, which is the ratio of perceived benefits to price. Reference pricing also impacts price sensitivity. Reference prices are a function of what is seen as fair, a competitive price for a similar item, and the price last paid for the item. Odd-even pricing, prices are rarely set at whole, round numbers. Studies have shown that consumers expect prices that end in an odd number, for example, $21.99, to suggest significantly more value, a deal, than those ending in an even number, for example, $22. Price bundling means bringing together two or more complementary products for a single price. It is common in many industries. In business markets, trade discounts are often to value chain members. Manufacturers will reduce prices for certain intermediaries based on the functions of that the intermediary performs. Discounts and allowances. Business buyers can take advantage of sales and other price breaks, including discounts for cash, quantity or bulk discounts, seasonal discounts, or trade allowances for participation in advertising or sales support programs. Geographic pricing is a common technique. Selling firms often quote prices in terms of reduction or increases based on transportation costs or the actual physical distance between the seller and the buyer. Transfer pricing occurs when one unit in an organization sells product to another unit. Transfer pricing is internal pricing within a global organization. Barter and counter trade, or non-monetary trade, may be used in some markets. In business exchanges across national boundaries, companies may use products rather than cash for payment. Although most of the history, prices were set by negotiation between buyers and sellers. Fixed price policies represent relatively modern idea that rose with the development of large-scale retailing. However, some companies are now reversing the fixed price toward dynamic pricing, i.e., adjusting prices continually to meet the needs of individual customers and situations. The advent of dynamic pricing is illustrated on this slide. Hewlett-Packard is bringing together information on the web to proactively adjust pricing. With web-based pricing systems, companies trawl complex supply chains for the cheapest and timeliest deals on the components. The system also allows the company to calculate costs quickly so that they can hammer out deals for customers without sacrificing profits in the meantime. GE establishes a web-based program integrated with internal data to process pricing quotes. DHL uses special web-based software to test prices in 43 markets. Retailers are also using real-time analysis to adjust pricing in a timely and effective manner. Auction-based pricing is reinvigorated in the new technology era. This slide provides a brief description of the different types of auctions: traditional English, reverse, Dutch auctions, as well as buyer-driven commerce. In the negotiated pricing situation, there are 3 pricing levels that both the buyer and seller must understand. Opening position, the figure that each side will put on the table as a starting point. Aspiration price, the number that each side will use to distinguish between a successful negotiation and an unsuccessful negotiation. Limit, the least favorable price each side will agree to during the negotiation. The goal of most negotiated pricing is to create value for both parties. This is especially important in interdependent organizational markets. Developing successful pricing strategy assumes two-way communication. Customer surveys are often used in order to gather the customer's feedback on the prices. These surveys may either directly ask questions about certain prices, price changes, or price differentials, or infer the response from an analysis of data on customers' expressed preference for one product over another. The following are examples of questions which are often included on direct price response surveys. What is the likelihood that you would buy this product at a price of $25? At what price would you definitely buy this product? How much would you be willing to pay for this product? At which price difference would you switch from product A to product B? The direct questioning method is simple, easily understood, and inexpensive. However, limitations often include a creation of unrealistically high price consciousness in respondents, bias, or responses may be reluctant to admit that they cannot afford a premium. Another problem can be that the order in which prices are represented can impact customers' response to prices. Studies on price preferences often use conjoint analysis. Conjoint measurement is relatively new but powerful procedure which has been widely applied for both customer and industrial products and services to overcome some of the limitations of direct questioning method. When using these techniques, respondents need to choose among competitive alternatives with different prices and features. There are many legal considerations impacting pricing strategies. Thus, price fixing or setting prices with competitors or distributors is prohibited by the Sherman Antitrust Act. Deceptive pricing, which means claiming a discounted price where there is none, is also illegal. Some practices are regulated by the Federal Trade Commission Act. Price discrimination, which is offering different prices to different customers where a cost differential doesn't exist, is regulated by the Robinson-Pacman Act. In global markets, the practice of pricing a product below cost or below the going price in the domestic market is often considered unfair by the offended foreign government. Ethical issues stem from the social impact prices may have on a target audience. Accordingly, some prices are regulated, cost of milk, or subsidize prescription drugs. Many professional services are either self-regulated or regulated through national governance. In global markets, due to logistical situations and taxes, the escalation of prices is a common marketing challenge. In addition, a marketeer must remain aware of the impact of currency changes or pricing strategies and financial performance. To summarize all that was said above, when setting a price, an organization needs to consider all approaches to pricing and prioritizing them appropriately. As a source of revenue for the firm, cost structure as well as competitor strategies and approaches should be carefully evaluated. Finally, price is a critical strategy marketing variable that will impact both short and long-term buyer behavior. Both distribution and supply chain management have remained essentially invisible to customers because the process occurs behind the scenes. Customers take these processes for granted and only notice interruptions of the supply chain. In the dramatic marketplace, it is crucial for organizations to efficiently and effectively deliver value to their target audiences. Accordingly, when considering strategic relationships and the distribution channel, it is essential to come up with decisions and strategies that will create value for all parties involved, the suppliers, the company, and all its customers. A value chain is a group of vertically aligned organizations that add value to a good or service, from partnerships to improve performance of the entire system. This includes the company, suppliers, distributors, and ultimately customers. The value chain focuses on processes, activities, organizations, and structures that combine to create value for customers as products move from their point of origin to end user. Value chain configurations vary dramatically between industries and markets. For example, Hewlett-Packard targets companies with fewer than 500 employees using value-added retailers, mail order, and internet to reduce cost. In the fast-moving electronic goods industry, other firms such as Palm also use complex supply chain relationships to produce and deliver their goods. In many industries, this now resembles networks. Partnerships play a very important role in the value delivery chain. The benefits partnerships may bring include the following: improved market vision and learning by pooling the knowledge and experience of the partners. Enhance customer value by integrating the partner's unique competencies. Joint analysis of what is required to create superior customer value for specific market segments. Capitalizing on value migration opportunities that are not feasible for a single organization. Reforming organization structure to gain efficiencies and greater adaptability to change. When and why does the value delivery chain or network become more integrated? According to the transaction cost theory, integration allows minimizing transaction costs. It takes advantage of an established hierarchy to control costs associated with the channel's members' role and resources. According to the theory, a chain becomes increasingly integrated due to increased level of asset passivity, uncertainty, and frequency of transactions. Assets may be intangible, financial or accounting services, or tangible, machinery. In order to minimize the behavioral uncertainty of certain partners as well as economic uncertainty associated with channel relationships, some organization may pursue increased levels of integration, giving them the perception of safer situation. However, if markets are volatile, studies have found that decreased integration and hybrid transactions are more efficient. For example, entertainment conglomerates have all responded in various ways to the advent of the internet. In many cases, they outsourced this channel function until the market stabilized. After the bold merger of AOL and Time Warner, however, other entertainment companies reevaluated and revised their own internal strategies. The table gives a summary of the relationship between asset specificity and uncertainty. Frequency of transactions is the third variable. If transactions occur frequently, then there is an increased tendency to integrate or internalize the transaction. For example, many fashion designers tend to move toward owning their own stores to be closer to the customer. Marketing channels can be defined as organization systems of marketing institutions through which products, resources, information, funds, and/or product ownership flow from the point of production to the final user. In other words, they represent the downstream side of the value delivery network. Intermediaries offer producers greater efficiency in making goods available to target markets. The figure shows how using intermediaries can provide economies. They reduce number of contacts each manufacturer should make to reach the customer. Through their experience, specialization, and scale of operations, intermediaries usually offer the firm more than it can achieve on its own. From an economic view, intermediaries transform the assortment of products into assortments wanted by customers. Channel members add value by bridging the major time, place, and possession gaps that separate goods and services from those who would use them. Members of the marketing channel perform many key functions, including gathering and distributing marketing research and intelligence information, developing and spreading communication about an offer, finding and communicating with prospective buyers, shaping and fitting the offer to the buyer's needs, reaching an agreement on process and other terms of the offer, transporting and storing goods, financing, and assuming the risk of carrying out the channel work. There are many strategic marketing considerations to be taken into account when designing a distribution system. The following issues provide insight into this multidimensional task. A marketeer needs to consider how and when a customer expects to purchase the product or service. The approximate frequency of purchasing and accompanying margins over manufacturing costs must be assessed. In addition, it is critical to understand what type of information is required by the buyer and how this information needs to be provided. Company objectives will typically be related to growth with both short and long-term goals. For example, if a marketing environment is volatile and changing, or if the organization lacks experience in that particular market, limited investments in channels may be appropriate. This is often the case in foreign markets. However, if the company is planning to be in a market over the long term, higher investment may be required. It is important to consider the product or service features. If the product is complex, like chemical processing equipment or financial planning services, then or more direct channel is necessary. Likewise, if there is a rapid change in production design or a need for feedback, then a direct channel is necessary. The degree of control over the product or service experience required to deliver it effectively will be negatively correlated with the length of the channel. For example, the marketing of automobiles requires ample information and supplementary services such as financing and eventually maintenance. Accordingly, despite predictions regarding car purchasing behavior shifting to the internet, dealerships are still the primary channel. Capital investment in some channels is more expensive than others. For example, internet website. It is important to conduct a cost-benefit analysis of each channel options, as is the assessment of related competencies. Besides the cost of investing in a channel, there are costs associated with maintaining that channel. These costs may include training, cooperative advertising, trade discounts, allowances, and the like. The configuration of a channel or its complexity varies widely, especially globally. Often the nature of the channel configuration is dictated by a government regulation or the industry culture. However, as in all markets, it is possible to differentiate your product or service by questioning the industry standard. The intensity of coverage is a critical decision for marketeers. Such a decision requires a thorough understanding of buyer behavior, in addition to having a good knowledge of the market and product. At which point does the buyer expect information or the product or service to be delivered? What is the expected buyer experience at the point of purchase? Exclusive distribution, the most restrictive type of market coverage, occurs when a firm gives one merchant or outlet the sole right to sell a product within a defined geographic region. Exclusive distribution is often found in the distribution of luxury automobiles, prestigious clothing, or other luxury goods. Exclusive distribution also enhances the brand's image and allows for higher markups. Selective distribution, a somewhat restrictive type of market coverage, occurs when a firm gives several merchants or outlets the right to sell a product in a defined geographic region. Most television, furniture, and home appliances are distributed in this manner. By using selective distribution, the firms can develop good working relationships with selected channel members and expect better than average selling effect. Intensive distribution, the least restrictive type of market coverage, occurs when a firm takes a product available in the maximum number of merchants or outlets in each area to gain as much exposure and as many opportunities as possible. Kraft, Coca-Cola, and other consumer goods companies distribute their products in this way. Managing the channel over time can be challenging due to shifting needs of all the parties. In general, managing the channel includes assisting and supporting intermediaries, developing operational procedures, providing incentives, selecting promotional programs, and evaluating results. Traditional brick-and-mortar travel agencies face competition from online travel agencies, airlines, and reverse auction websites such as Priceline. These competitive pressures continue to drive cost reductions at all levels of the channel. Conflict between the parties in a channel is very common. Vertical conflict arises between various channel members at different levels of a channel. Horizontal conflict arises between competing channel members of the same level, such as territorial disputes between franchises or retailers. Typically, conflict arises due to different objectives, priorities, and vague corporate culture. When a channel configuration negatively impacts the competitive nature of the market, it is subject to potential antitrust regulations in the U.S. and some other global markets. Some of legal issues include exclusive dealing or exclusive distribution. Exclusive dealing refers to the situation when a seller requires the dealer do not handle competitors' products. Other potentially illegal practices include restrictive contracts, promotional allowances, and incentives and pricing practices. As in all aspects of business, ethical issues are common in distribution management. For example, gray market appears when products sold in one market of the world for a lower price are redistributed illegally into higher price markets in other countries. In order to create effective and efficient value chains, relationships with members must be managed. The potential impact of harmful factors can be significantly minimized if building relationships was strong priority in the firm's overall business strategy. First of all, when designing your value chain, it is critical to establish clear selection criteria. It is very important to set objectives and standards with your channel members. Objectives may be based on profit contribution, revenues, costs, market share, consumer satisfaction levels, rate of growth, productivity or reduction of cost. Standards may be delineated by quotas, average inventory levels, customer delivery time, treatment of damaged and lost goods, and cooperation in promotional and training programs. Both training and constant communications are of great importance. Effective communication has been noted to be a critically important variable in distribution management. Use of various motivation approaches have been found to be effective. Establishing clear mediation guidelines is also very important, especially in international channels. For example, Microsoft requires third-party service engineers to complete a set of courses and take certification exams. Those that pass are formally recognized as Microsoft Certified Professionals, and they can use this designation to promote business. Perhaps the most advanced form of value chain management is distribution programming, often facilitated through a distribution relations planning department. This department coordinates manufacturing goals, inventory levels, space, and visual merchandising programs to help each distributor's needs, as well as build up merchandising programs to help each distributor's operation as efficiently as possible. Companies operating these programs include Procter & Gamble and Kraft. Establishing appropriate means of motivating the channel members is crucial. Based on organizational theory, there are 4 strategies classified according to type of power that is used in motivating a channel. Coercive power. This may be effective in the short term, but could negatively impact the willingness of channel members to cooperate in the long term. Example can be a situation when a manufacturer threatens to withdraw a resource or terminate a relationship if the intermediaries do not cooperate. Reward power is usually more effective than coercive power, but can be a problem if distributors start expecting rewards on a continual basis. Legitimate power can be effective in the short run. For example, the manufacturer may request a behavior that is warranted under the contract. Expert power is possessed by a manufacturer which has special knowledge that the distributor can also use. For example, Sony's ImageWorks expertise in motion capture is used by entertainment companies such as Warner Brothers. However, once the knowledge is shared, the power is reduced. Referent power means sharing a firm's good reputation by its partners. For example, the manufacturer is highly respected, so intermediaries are proud to be working for them. Of course, motivational practices that rely on more than purely power relationships can be extremely effective in the long run. The following are examples of successful partnership building strategies. DuPont has a distributor marketing steering committee that meets regularly. Vanity Fair, Levi Strauss, and Hanes have formed quick response partnerships with discounters and department stores. Rust-Oleum introduces a menu of marketing programs each quarter, and distributors choose the programs that fit their needs. Marketeers must constantly focus on identifying value, creating functions and factors. Taking the customer's viewpoint in order to effectively manage value chains is critical. Management of the value chain should be proactive and ongoing. Finally, technology and globalization will continue to change the shape and configuration of supply chains in the future.